Hey there, everyone. Welcome back to Utility Sports. And in today's video, we're going to be focusing on another 2022 NBA mock draft. Again, it's been a few weeks since our last one, and a ton has changed in the NBA. The trade deadline really did shake some things up, and we're taking a closer look at all the ramifications from the trades that we saw during the trade deadline, which teams may be looking at, which players in the NBA draft. I've also tightened up my own NBA draft big board. I have a video of that up on the channel as well, so make sure you go check that out after this video. And I think this NBA mock draft is going to be really interesting just based on where current teams are sitting. And the reason we're looking at this here is that, first of all, this is a mock draft. Okay, so this is based on the standings as of March 11th, 2022. I am recording this right before March Madness, so there's a little bit of a risk here that, some guy goes absolutely crazy during March Madness, has a phenomenal run, and then all of a sudden we're talking about him as a lottery pick. I'm recording this right before that, so very possible that someone absolutely changes my mind in the next couple weeks on where I would have him go in the NBA mock draft. But remember, I'm doing this before March Madness, so as of right now, it's based off of what I've seen right up until the conference tournaments, basically. And right here before the lottery as well. Of course, there's an NBA draft lottery, so we're just doing it based on the standings. And this is not a big board. If I have somebody go first overall, it doesn't mean they're the best player in the class, in my opinion. If I have someone go 12th overall, it doesn't mean I think they're the 12th best player, and so on and so forth. I do not draft in the order I think these guys are the best. I'm drafting in the order that I think they would get drafted by specific teams. You're looking at team fits, team needs, and also the way that teams usually draft, looking at GM draft history, that kind of stuff, all plays in to who would get drafted where. So again, this is not my big board. This is a mock draft. Let's go ahead forward now here into pick one. Based off the standings, that's the Houston Rockets as of right now. And this is what happens when you have a whole bunch of young guards. Even though Jalen Green's been playing better as of late, you also have had better performances from Kevin Porter Jr. and Josh Christopher. Playing a whole bunch of young guards probably leads to a lot of losing, which is what we've seen here from Houston. The other issue is they just don't rebound the ball extremely well, and they don't get a ton of defensive stops. So those are some areas they're going to have to improve. And first overall, the thing about the Houston is I do feel really confident with the guards that they have moving forward in terms of their talent and their ability to score the basketball. So in a class like this, where there's a premier guard, there's a really crazy defensive big who can switch out onto the perimeter with extremely great length and offensive skill set, more as a connector piece offensively. And then there's two offensive juggernauts where you're going to give them the ball and let them go score 20 to 25 points a night. For me, if I'm Houston, I'm opting for the guy who's the unicorn defensive player. And that's forward/center Chet Holmgren. I think he fits perfectly as the four there right away on day one in Houston. I love the fact that they took Alperen Sengun last year in the draft. I was really high on him. I love his skill set. He's a really good rebounder, and he kind of reminds me of the combination that we're seeing right now in Gonzaga between Chet Holmgren and Drew Timme. Now, the one issue with Chet Holmgren here, he hasn't performed super well against better teams. So, against St. Mary's, he's had 2 games against them and struggled both games. And I think a lot of executives are going to look at that and say, well, how's he going to fare against NBA size, length, speed, strength, and so on? And I do think that will be a concern moving forward. I do think there's going to be a little bit of a concern around that. But at the same time, a 7'1" player who can handle the ball the way he does, can switch out onto the perimeter defensively, can run in transition, can push the pace with the ball in his hands, and can also throw hit-ahead passes with ease. Players like him just don't come around often. So I think Chet Holmgren here makes a lot of sense, not only based on what Houston has on the roster, but also based on the skill set and talent that he shows. Moving on to pick 2, we've got Orlando here, and the Orlando Magic are another interesting team. A ton of young talent. Jalen Suggs, he's starting to come around. Franz Wagner's been very good all season. The Magic have a pretty good collection of talent on that roster. Markelle Fultz is finally back from injury. You also have Jonathan Isaac, who's going to return soon, hopefully, coming off that ACL that he tore. So for me, if I'm Orlando, I'm trying to just find someone who can really score the basketball in the half court. I don't necessarily need a guard because I've got Markelle Fultz. I've got Cole Anthony, who I know, his numbers are higher, but maybe the efficiency and winning is not going to be there. I've also got Jalen Suggs, who's a really big-time winning player. So for me, I'm going forward Jabari Smith, second overall here for Orlando. The Auburn player here has been phenomenal all season long. He's been the go-to guy in the half court for them. And he's really been at the center of everything for a really successful season for Auburn. First time in program history they had been ranked #1 in the AP poll this year. And I think he's a really impressive prospect when you consider his ability to score in the mid-range, his ability to shoot from three, his size, length, versatility, pretty good weak side rim protector. The issue is here, everyone compares Jabari Smith to Kevin Durant. I get that he's lengthy and he's got a little bit of a skinnier frame and he's a really skilled perimeter player. We just need to stop comparing guys to Kevin Durant because it makes Brandon Ingram seem like a disappointment. It would make Jabari Smith seem like a disappointment as well if people have their expectations set to Kevin Durant. He's not going to be Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant's one of the 20 best players of all time. Okay, Jabari Smith probably won't be that, but what he will be is a multi-time All-Star, and Orlando's getting a really good player here. Pick 3, the Detroit Pistons now on the board at this point. They're a solid young team. They've got some nice pieces. I think that there's a little bit of work to do to make it all fit, though. I know Killian Hayes has shown a little bit more this year, but I'm just not a believer in him. Cade Cunningham, though, I'm a big-time believer in. That kid is special. The fact that Detroit moved up to pick 1 last year was huge, huge, huge for this franchise. Cade Cunningham is a franchise-type of changing player. And luckily here in a crazy good class, if Detroit's picking 3rd, they have another chance at 1. And that's going to be Jaden Ivey out of Purdue. We got a little bit of a fire and ice mix here between Cade Cunningham and Jaden Ivey. Cunningham, of course, a player who plays at his own speed, doesn't rush, takes care of the basketball, and is just really precise and skilled. And then you add in someone who's a blur with Jaden Ivey. I mean, those two guys are going to be such a fun combination to watch. I think both of them have the skill set where they can work off the ball from each other. And with Cade Cunningham's size and athleticism, you can afford to play 2 guards who are really talented like this because neither one of them are super small. Jaden Ivey 6'4", Cade Cunningham, of course, 6'8". So you have 2 good sized guards that can really complement each other. One gives you really good mid-range shot creation off the bounce in Cade Cunningham. Then Jaden Ivey is going to live at the rim. He can get there anytime he wants through an NBA game. The NBA spacing is going to be huge for them as well. If they can add in a little bit more shooting around these 2 guys, they could be really, really deadly extremely quickly. Moving on to pick 4, the Oklahoma City Thunder now here on the board. Sam Presti's praying he's not picking 4th overall. Sam Presti's hoping to have a top 1 or 2 pick in this year's class. However, being picked 4 at this point is not a bad outcome for Oklahoma City. They badly need some help in the front court because they've got a ton of good guards there. When you look at Trey Mann, Lou Dort, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, you also have Josh Giddey, who's an absolute star in the making, in my opinion, with his ability to read the floor and create for others. And here I think they're getting a player who's going to really help solidify their scoring punch, and that's Paolo Banchero out of Duke. He's someone who I could see quickly averaging 20 to 25 points a game in his NBA career. He's not the quickest player, doesn't have the best burst, he's not the best athlete in this year's class, but what he is a very skill set oriented player, similar to Cade Cunningham. Not quite the playmaker Cade is, probably not quite the defender Cade is, but knows how to use his body, has a pretty solid handle. And for the power forward position, he's a perfect installment of what today's NBA game looks like, simply because of what his skill set is. He can create in the mid-range for himself. He can lull people to sleep with his handle. He can shoot the 3 ball well. He can finish around the rim through contact. Those are pretty much every little thing you're looking for offensively he can do. Reminds me a lot of New York Knicks version of Carmelo Anthony, where, you know, maybe some of that burst he had in Denver wasn't quite there anymore, but an extremely efficient and lethal scorer of the basketball. And Paolo Banchero is going to be a really great player in the NBA. Pick 5, we got the Indiana Pacers, and this is really where the board opens up for me. Those top 4 picks are probably locks. Not in that order specifically, necessarily depends on who's picking where, but I think those are for sure the top 4 guys in that in an order where it could be any of those in any order. But pick 5 here now, we're looking at the Pacers, and this is where the draft to me really kind of gets underway, because Indiana's got a huge decision to make here based off what they have on their roster with Tyrese Halliburton, Chris Duarte. I think they don't look guard. I also think they roll with Miles Turner. I think they could consider Jalen Duren here, but I wouldn't opt for that if I were them. For me, I think what they're going to go with is Benedict Mathurin out of Arizona. He's had a really great season in the Pac-12 this year. He's been at the heart and center of everything Arizona's done. They've been ranked as high as 2 in the nation this year, and he's been phenomenal every step of the way. Does pretty much everything you'd want for him to do on the offensive end of the floor, can create, is a good slasher of the basketball, can also step out, shoot the three ball good off the catch, also can create for himself a bit. And I think really where he fits in the NBA is a Mikal Bridges type player, where he becomes a really good two-way wing that can, put the ball in his hands. He can fly. He's very athletic. He's also got a good jump shot where he gets a ton of height under him, which is going to make him really tough to contest at the NBA level. And I think he's one of the perfect players to put next to Tyrese Halliburton, because watching the Pacers right now, they definitely do need a little bit more creation content there in Indiana. Of course, Halliburton doesn't take a ton of moving shots. So I think if you're Indiana, you need to add a little bit more dynamism. And I think Benedict Mathurin here's the perfect blend of that. For me, defensively, the only thing I'd like to see more from him is getting down in a stance a little bit more consistently. And once he does, he's going to be a problem. Pick 6, Sacramento Kings here now. Of course, it's not a good situation if you're Sacramento. You give up your best young player in Tyrese Halliburton, and you see yourself sliding downward in the standings. They just haven't been able to get a win since trading for Domantas Sabonis. It feels like they've struggled pretty much every step of the way. But here now, 6th overall, they have a good chance to add a little bit more talent to their roster. And they're going to do that here with Johnny Davis, which is a little complicated here because, of course, they tried clearing out that guard room by moving Tyrese Halliburton. And then they come back and take a guard here. My reasoning for that is Johnny Davis is just simply too good to pass up on here, 6th overall. Very possibly he could be 5th overall, and I think some scouts and executives even see him as a potential top 4 pick. I'm not sure if he's going to get quite that high, but I think 6th overall is the absolute floor for a guy like Johnny Davis. He has to go in the top 6. I'd be shocked if he doesn't, just based on how good he is as a creator for himself in the mid-range. He's got a good physical frame. He's going to be a nice, solid guard. He's a really well-rounded player. Now, the one question I have is how well does his shooting stack up at the NBA level? Is the three-point line going to be a little too deep for him? Is he going to be a little too streaky to find a ton of success? Ultimately, though, you take the talent, you take the player that's been really great this year for Wisconsin, and 6th overall, that's a really good pickup for Sacramento. Moving on to 7, we got the Portland Trailblazers here. They have 2 picks in the top 10 in this mock draft. And 7's a really vital one for them based on what they have on their roster. I actually got to see this team play live in person, and they're just void of wing talent, whether that's an off-ball guard or a small forward, power forward. They just need more guys who can play around Anthony Simons and Damian Lillard. Of course, Yusuf Nurkic is going to be huge for them in the front court, assuming they bring him back. Here I'm looking at forward AJ Griffin out of Duke. For me, he's a really talented wing player who's really started to take steps forward in the past month or so, specifically since he got moved to the starting lineup against Wake Forest. He has really never looked back. He had an injury that he was dealing with, also was out with sickness for a little bit. But when he's been on the floor, he's been great. He's starting to get a little bit quicker, a little bit better burst in his step. And for me, AJ Griffin is a really good pickup here for Portland, not only because he can help them offensively, has a good, well-rounded skill set, can shoot the 3 ball really well. He's shooting a great percentage from 3 this year, but also defensively. That's really going to be his MO. He's going to be a good physical defensive wing. You could put him on probably the toughest assignment night in, night out. And that's going to be huge for Chauncey. Chauncey Billups wants to be a better defensive team. He does a ton of different things. He's been running some 3-2 matchup zone, 2-3 matchup zone. He's even put on some, full court zone presses, which you don't really see super often in the NBA. Chauncey Billups is trying to pull every little string he can right now to get the most out of his team. They just don't have a ton of talent right now, and they need a little bit more wing presence. And I think AJ Griffin's a great starting point. 8th overall, we got the San Antonio Spurs here. And this is a team, again, they've got some good talent. Congratulations to Greg Popovich as well for becoming the all-time wins leader as an NBA head coach. Well-deserved. He's a phenomenal head coach. And here, if you're trying to help this team win more games, I think they got to get a little bit more athletic and a little bit stronger on the interior. And I think that's going to probably include a Jakob Poeltl trade at some point. But for me, that's going to be Jalen Duren, center out of Memphis. He had a huge game against UCF in the conference tournament. He had a 20-20 game. So you're looking at a player who knows how to play within his role, also has some pretty good playmaking feel, and that's really where his upside lies. Is he going to be a pick and roll man who can maybe operate as a tertiary facilitator in an offense? That's going to be the way he opens up your half-court game. He doesn't shoot the ball a ton right now, shoots a little bit from the mid-range area, but really the athleticism is what stands out. He's a great rim protector, has really good shot blocking timing, and can also switch out onto the perimeter, which is a very, very rare thing to be able to do. So for me, Jalen Duren is a really good pickup here for San Antonio. I think he really raises the ceiling of this team past what a Jakob Poeltl can be. Moving on to pick 9 now. Here again, we got the Portland Trailblazers here with the pick coming from the New Orleans Pelicans in the deal for CJ McCollum. And this is huge here. They have 2 top 10 picks. We'll see if they're interested in shopping them this offseason for a guy like Jeremy Grant potentially. But assuming they don't, AJ Griffin was who they went with, pick 7. And pick 9, they come back and double down with another forward here, Shaedon Sharpe. And really what I see from this team is closing lineups, looking like Damian Lillard, Anthony Simons, Shaedon Sharpe, AJ Griffin, and also Yusuf Nurkic, and perhaps you could interchange Nasir Little into there. I know he's looked better this season as well, but I think Shaedon Sharpe has immense upside. And if you're looking at a player who he's not going to have played a college game by the time he's draft eligible, so it's going to really come down to individual workouts and how he looks at the NBA draft combine if he participates. And he's the type of player that's going to really excel in those areas because he's extremely athletic, has phenomenal bounce. He's got a good NBA-ready body already as an 18-year-old. He's an impressive young player. And I think someone who doesn't have college tape still might be able to stay in the top 10 simply based off his physicals. And Portland, again, if you're looking to get better defensively, you need to add more size, length, and athleticism. If you're planning on playing Damian Lillard and Anthony Simons next to each other in the backcourt a ton, you're going to need some physical wings. You're going to need some athletic wings. And then the question is Yusuf Nurkic a good enough rim protector to hold up on that end of the floor? I really did think about Jalen Duren 7th overall for Portland. It's a possibility, but I think the wing position is massively needed as well. So going with AJ Griffin and Shaedon Sharpe here does make a ton of sense. If I'm Portland, you get a lot better. I also considered Jeremy Sohan here, but I think it's a little high for him maybe. So going with Shaedon Sharpe, I think is a really good outcome still for Portland. Moving on to pick 10, we got the New York Knicks here, and a team that really just needs some star players. They need some star potential. They have some nice players on their roster when you look at what Emmanuel Quickley is. I like him. I like Obi Toppin. Julius Randle's a good player. I don't know if he's a star player. Definitely not a superstar player like he was when he got an All-NBA third team appearance. And then, this team, Mitchell Robinson's good. Nerlens Noel is good. I just don't know if they have a ton of great players. And really, if they want to be great, they need a couple great players. So the guy that they're going to go with here is guard Jaden Hardy out of G League Ignite. This is one of those boomer bust prospects. There's a chance that he fizzles out of the league within 4 or 5 years, where he's just not efficient, doesn't score the basketball extremely well, struggles in the half court to get good looks. But there's also the chance that he becomes a Donovan Mitchell type player, where he becomes the lead guy of an offense, where he's able to average 25 and 8, where he's able to be the franchise masterpiece, the franchise cornerstone, the franchise guy. And if New York wants to get back to relevancy, it's not going to come through free agency. It's going to come through the NBA draft. I think he's a phenomenal fit next to RJ Barrett. And if you're looking at what this team is going to be down the road, they need a guy who they can put the ball in his hands. And Jaden Hardy's been that every single night for G League Ignite this past year. Now, I know his efficiency is not super high. That's very common for an 18 or 19-year-old player. They're not going to be efficient right out of the gate. But Jaden Hardy, I think, once he gets into the league, gets his feet wet a little bit more, and gets more accustomed to the NBA game, he could very well be one of the best players from this year's class, and getting him 10th overall could be a massive steal here for the Knicks. Pick 11, we've got the Washington Wizards here, a team that's in an interesting situation. They got a ton of forwards. Their front court is very loaded. And the thing here now that you're asking is, Bradley Beal, is he going to be back or not? I know he said he's leaning towards signing that extension with Washington. I'm not sure if he's going to want to stay in Washington, though. He could look to get the contract extension and then request a trade out of Washington. That is a possibility. So for me, if I'm looking at Washington here, I still think I have to find a guard. The Spencer Dinwiddie trial just clearly did not work out there in Washington. So I'm going to go with guard Ty Washington. It'll be interesting. It's going to say Washington on the front and back of his jersey there for the Wizards. But I do think Ty Washington's a talented guard, and I think he's maybe a little bit more of a natural fit next to Bradley Beal because he's more of a facilitator type with the capability of scoring, whereas Dinwiddie's more of a scoring guard with the capability of facilitating. I think Ty Washington could help the Wizards get into their sets, get the ball over to Bradley Beal and facilitate for him and be a key distributor for this team early on, with the upside of becoming a really solid scorer as well. I never see him as a 20-point per game type of guy, but I could see him averaging in some of his good years 15-7, maybe 16-8. He's that type of player. He's doing that this year for Kentucky, and I think he's going to be someone who's really intriguing for a lot of teams around pick 10 to pick 14 in the lottery. Moving on to pick 12. Here we got the Memphis Grizzlies. It's crazy that they have a top 14 pick in this year's draft, just given with how good they are. But of course, that comes from the Lakers through the Pelicans. So there's a ton of movement on this pick already. But here, the Grizzlies, they have really good flexibility. As long as this pick does not go into the top 10, it stays with them. And for them at this point, 12th overall, I have them going with forward Keegan Murray, who just honestly feels like a Memphis Grizzly. I don't know if you guys get that same vibe as well, but he has been extremely efficient. He's a machine scoring the basketball, and he does it in a lot of easy ways, put back buckets, catching the ball around the rim, back to the basket game. Everything looks just nice and easy for him at Iowa this year. And I think the benefit of taking a guy like Keegan Murray here to be your 4 for the future if you're Memphis is part of why you've been so successful this year is Jaren Jackson's just playing more of the 5-man position. He's improved so much defensively that you could afford to play him as your center and move Keegan Murray to your 4 so you still have some good size, length, and skill set on the floor. It's a really good combination here in Memphis to me. You add talent, you add physicality, you add someone who rebounds, and that's really what Memphis needs. If you're moving Jaren Jackson to the full-time 5 down the road, once you no longer have Steven Adams, Keegan Murray's going to have to be a huge rebounder for you. And luckily, he likes rebounding the basketball on both ends of the floor. So I think this is a really good pairing here between Keegan Murray and the Memphis Grizzlies. Pick 13, we got the Atlanta Hawks. Now at this point, they're a team that has just not really ever found its footing this year. They've gone up and down. After the Cam Reddish trade, they've been better, but I think they dug themselves a little bit too much of a hole to become a real playoff team at this point. We'll see if they can get in the play-in. It's very possible. They just have to win 2 games to do it. But there is a lot of pressure on you to get that done. So 13th overall, I'm going with forward Kendall Brown. They're a tough team to mock for because last year they took Sharif Cooper. I'm a believer that he can be their backup point guard for the future. They also have a ton of wings already. They're a team that needs to make a consolidation trade. They need to package a couple of their good players, probably these 2 first-round picks they have this year, and try and make a play for a star. I would be really interested in that for Atlanta. We'll see if they can get that done. There's not a ton of stars available right now. That really makes sense. Dame and Bradley Beal, probably the 2 most available stars. And those 2 guys don't really make a ton of sense next to Trae Young, in my opinion. So for me in Atlanta, if I'm picking here, I got to go with a forward who's lengthy, switchable, and can also be a nice secondary or tertiary playmaker for a team. And that's Kendall Brown out of Baylor. And then pick 14, we've got Atlanta here again. This one comes from Charlotte through the New York Knicks for the Cam Reddish trade. So with this pick, the Hawks, they're going to go with a forward EJ Liddell. They just clearly need more talented defensive players. They don't have a ton of them on their team. DeAndre Hunter's one of their few defensive players, Clint Capella as well, and Onyeka Okongwu. They need more talent on the defensive end of the floor. They need more guys who love defending, and EJ Liddell loves defending. He's averaging nearly 3 blocks a game this year for Ohio State. He's been great for them. He's immensely improved offensively as well. He's a really good pickup here. It's possible I could see him even going in the top 10 if he has a good combine period and good individual workouts, because he's the type of player every single coach in the NBA is going to love. He likes to defend. He loves winning, and that's a good combination to add into an Atlanta team here who needs defense and wants to win. Moving to pick 15, we got the Houston Rockets. This pick comes from the Brooklyn Nets, of course, from the James Harden trade. And if this pick stays 15th overall, it's a good opportunity for the Rockets to get way better, because with the first pick, they went with Chet Holmgren, and now here they go with forward Nikola Jovic, who is a Serbian-born wing and gives them a little bit more length and size on the wing. He's a good shooter, but most importantly, he gets to the rim, and he's someone who plays quickly. He doesn't need to catch and sit and ISO, doesn't need to catch and really slow down in offense. He's all about going on the move. So I think he's someone who can open this team up. You add Chet Holmgren in, you add Nikola Jovic in, and you have an intriguing blend here of dynamism on this team with 2 really good creation guards. You also have forwards who can push the pace and tempo and transition. And you have some size as well with Nikola Jovic being 6'10", Chet Holmgren at 7'1", and Alperen Şengün being a near 7-footer as well. You've got some good size in the front court next to your really talented backcourt, and it's a good combination moving forward in Houston. 16th overall, we got the Oklahoma City Thunder here. This pick comes from the Los Angeles Clippers from the Paul George trade. And 16th overall, I have him going with shot blocker Walker Kessler, the center out of Auburn. He's been the running mate next to Jabari Smith all season long. Earlier, remember, the Thunder went with Paolo Banchero, and now they double down in the front court, go get Walker Kessler. And this is a great outcome for Oklahoma City. Last year, they traded out of the pick that was Alperen Sengun to Houston, and I thought that was a mistake for them. I thought they needed a big man. If this plays out this way, if they can get Walker Kessler, it's huge. They get a rim protector. This is going to immensely improve their defense. You add way more size and strength with the combination of Paolo Banchero, Walker Kessler, way more talent, way better skill set on the floor. And all of a sudden, this Thunder team starts to look way more legit. They're already winning some games without any real consistent front court play. You add in two really good front court players in this draft, and all of a sudden they become pretty dangerous, I think, and probably start competing, honestly, for an 8th seed in the Western Conference. Pick 17, we got the San Antonio Spurs. This pick comes from the Toronto Raptors in the Thaddeus Young trade. And with the Spurs, again, on the board here, they went with Jalen Duren earlier in the draft. And 17th overall, I'm having him go with guard Hugo Bassan from New Zealand. He plays for the New Zealand Breakers of the NBL. For those of you who don't know him, he's a shooting extraordinaire. Can shoot on the move, can shoot standstill, and is going to be extremely productive in that role. But the area that really makes him special and worth a top 20 pick in my eyes is he's able to create as a shooter. So he can run off of a screen, catch, and if it's contested, he's going to put the ball on the deck, get to the rim. He can also create for others. Doesn't average a ton of assists right now, but he's a willing passer, and he's someone who can really knife a defense up. You add him into after the lottery, and I mean, this is a phenomenal pick. I think he's a lottery level player. In my big boards, I always have him in the top 14 because I think he's that good. He's talented. He's about to turn 21, so he's a little bit older than some of these other guys, but not by much considering how many sophomores are in this year's class. He's basically, 6 months older than some of the other guys that are going in the lottery. So for me, Hugo Bassan, phenomenal pickup here for San Antonio. I know they've added more shooting through free agency with Doug McDermott and a few other pieces, but I think Hugo Bassan, he's an interesting piece, especially after the Derek White trade, to add him back into the fold. Pick 18 here, we got the Minnesota Timberwolves. And now at this point of the draft, I think that they need a little bit more defensive help, and I think they need some more, continuity on what this team is going to be. So for me, I'm going with forward Jeremy Sohan out of Baylor. This is arguably the best defensive player in this year's class because he's one of the few guys in the NBA that I think is going to be able to guard 1 through 5. We've seen that at Baylor. There's a lot of times where he's playing small ball center and he's taking opposing 5s. He did it against Mark Williams. He's done it against some really good players this past season. And then also you look at what he's able to do. He can push the ball in transition, gives him another ball handler. But the one issue for him, which is why he's not a lottery pick in this mock draft, offensively in the half court, he just doesn't score the ball. So I think he's a fit here into Minnesota because Jared Vanderbilt plays a similar way. So Jeremy Sohan can obviously be that instant fill-in for Vanderbilt when Vando goes off the floor. But the issue, as well as those two guys probably can't play together, but Jeremy Sohan, I mean, the Wolves just need more good defensive players. They're in a similar boat to where Atlanta was at, where when you have Karl Anthony Towns and D'Angelo Russell, you're probably not going to be a great defensive team unless you really surround them with a ton of defensive talent. And I think Jeremy Sohan here, he can be an example of that. Phenomenal kid out of Baylor. I love his defensive upside. I think, he's funny. He's a Polish-born player, has some of the crazy hair at times. Kind of reminds me of Dennis Rodman. Now, he doesn't rebound the ball like Rodman ever did, but the defensive versatility is massive. I don't think he's going to be as good of a defender as Rodman, but he's eerily similar with his size and defensive skill set. 19, we got the Indiana Pacers here. Earlier, they went with forward Ben Mathurin, and now at 19, they've got an opportunity here to go with a guy like Trace Jackson Davis, who actually plays for the college in Indiana, for the Indiana Hoosiers. And for me, Trace Jackson Davis probably doesn't get looked at as a first-round pick a ton, but I know Rick Carlisle. I know what he's going to be pushing for, and it's a forward/center like Trace Jackson Davis who wants to defend, who can protect the rim. He's athletic, can roll really, really well. If you're looking at a backup center there in Indiana, Goga Bitadze is just a brutal fit into what Rick Carlisle wants to do. Goga Bitadze's skill set does not lean itself at all into Rick Carlisle's offense. Trace Jackson Davis's does. He's a phenomenal roll man. He's also a pretty good passer of the post. You could even use him in some short rolls. You get him the ball around the free throw line and let him create for others. And he can play next to Miles Turner because of Miles Turner's offensive skill set. you can afford to do this. You add another shot blocker into the mix, and I think it's a really good outcome for Indiana, where you look at your team moving forward. You've already addressed forward with the Ben Mathurin pick. This is kind of a luxury pick here. You can go with, in whichever way you really want if you're Indiana. And for me, the one that makes the most sense is a 4 or 5 who can be a spell guy to Miles Turner at this point in the draft. Pick 20, we got the Denver Nuggets here, a team that I think has a few needs, and they've been really shown with the injuries to Jamal Murray and Michael Porter Jr. Nikola Jokic is doing a ton for this team, and he deserves serious MVP consideration. But when I look at this here now, the guy I have to go with if I'm Denver is Patrick Baldwin. I don't love him as a player. He's fairly one-dimensional, pretty much just a catch-and-shoot guy, in my opinion. But Denver needs that. Okay, they added Aaron Gordon, who's a good cutter. But when Michael Porter Jr. is not on the floor, they just don't have any shooting. I feel like a lot of teams right now are just really crashing the paint, making Nikola Jokic, have to work for any bucket he gets. And he also has to kick the ball out to a whole bunch of minus shooters, guys who aren't consistent from three. Patrick Baldwin will be. He's a good shooter. He's similar in physicals to Michael Porter Jr. He stands about 6'9". He's got good length and size at the wing position. Not the best defender. He's a little stiff in the hips, kind of like Michael Porter Jr. But again, this is an example of bringing in a guy who helps your star player just by being able to space the floor and get shots up. And I think there is actual value here for Denver in this regard. Pick 21, we got the San Antonio Spurs. Their third pick here in the first round. Of course, so far they got with Jalen Duren and Hugo Bassan, and now 21st overall. I have them taking forward MarJon Beauchamp from G League Ignite. He's an interesting wing. I know some people see him even as a lottery pick. I'm a little less high on him than that. I think he's a talented wing, though, with pretty good physical profile here, and someone who I think off the ball can really cut. Now, with San Antonio, I think they're another team that needs to make some consolidation moves. They need to package a few of their guys, because right now they are very, very deep in a way, but they're also not super talented at the top end of that. So, like, for example, what I mean here is Keldon Johnson, Devin Vassell, Josh Primo. You have a lot of guys who do somewhat similar things, so it's hard to have 3 first-round picks this year and not imagine them making a move to really kind of consolidate everything. But if they still have this pick, MarJon Beauchamp, he's one of the better available players and someone who I think fits the Spurs draft history style. 22, Dallas Mavericks now at this point. Of course, I'm a huge Dallas Mavericks fan, and what I think they have to look at here is a big. Dwight Powell's played pretty well this year, but I think that they still needed another one, someone who can complement Dwight Powell, and I think probably would become the starter down the road. And this is center Mark Williams here out of Duke. Not very often I've included him in a first-round mock, but I think his play's been good enough this year that he's deserving of it. He's very athletic. He's really good at using his body to seal guys off. He's going to help Luka Doncic get a bunch of easy buckets in the pick-and-roll game. And he's a nice lob threat. He is an athletic player who's going to get out in transition and run. And that's something Dallas badly needs. They do not run in transition very well at all right now. I believe they're last in the league in pace. And of course, that's going to probably remain true with Luka Doncic. But when you do have Luka off the floor, the combination of Brunson, Finney Smith, Mark Williams, and Dwight Powell on the floor, or Maxi Kleber, that group could probably get out and run a little bit more consistently. So I think Mark Williams is a good addition to this roster for sure. 23, we got the Chicago Bulls here, and they're devastated to see Mark Williams go off the board, because that's who I would have mocked to them had he still been available. And at this point, this is going to maybe feel like a little bit of reach, but I don't think Bulls fans are going to be too mad about it. I'm going with Kofi Cockburn out of Illinois. Of course, they're staying in-state again with this selection. They did this last year with guard Ayo Dosunmu. And I think Kofi Cockburn could help them as well address some of the needs that they have, specifically that backup center position. He's a huge player. I mean, just massive. His physical frame is crazy big. He's very strong. He's ready to come in, body for rebounds, and really fight. And I think there's going to be a lot of value there for Chicago. Adding that in behind Nikola Vucevic gives them a different style that they can go to, where Vuce, not the most physical player. He's solid, but he doesn't, play with the most strength. He's not going to send a guy flying on a box out, that kind of thing. Kofi Cockburn's going to go in and fight. And I think that's going to be huge, helping this bench identity a little bit more in Chicago. 24th overall here now, got the Memphis Grizzlies. This pick comes from Utah from the Mike Conley trade a few years back. And what they're going to look at here now at this point is a guard to go put on their bench. That's guard Kennedy Chandler, another player here who just feels like the grit and grind Memphis Grizzlies. He is going to be really competitive, wants to win, was part of the USA U19 World Cup team that won gold against France a year ago. And here with Kennedy Chandler, the thing I like about him is how pesky he is. He's going to be a really solid defensive guard who's going to be willing to pick up 94 feet. He's going to get in the passing lanes. He's going to be a pickpocket, and he's just going to be a pain to play against every single night. Already when you're playing against Memphis, it seems like they just keep frustrating and agitating everybody with their speed, athleticism, length, and their skill set. But then you add in another guard who's even going to add a little bit more frustration into the mix. That's absolutely awesome for me, and I think the Grizzlies come out really well if Kennedy Chandler's the selection. Moving on now to pick 25, the Brooklyn Nets here. This pick comes from the 76ers in the James Harden trade. And for the Nets, there's a few things I'm looking for here. Specifically, I'm looking for a big who can shoot to help Ben Simmons be a little bit more playable come playoff time specifically. And that's going to be Isaiah Mobley here out of USC. He's a career 38% three-point shooter at the collegiate level, and I see it translating. He's got a very high release point. He's pretty quick with his release as well, comfortable in the catch and shoot scenarios, and also is pretty good out of the post. So you're looking at Evan Mobley's brother here going into Brooklyn. It's going to be interesting for him on draft night. I'm interested to see if any teams try and lure Evan Mobley for the future by drafting Isaiah Mobley. I think since Evan Mobley is only a rookie right now, I don't necessarily know if I see that happening for sure. But at the same time, you have to consider Isaiah Mobley went to USC first, and then Evan Mobley followed him there. So perhaps some teams are going to be licking their chops at the potential to draft Isaiah Mobley simply based on trying to bring Evan Mobley in later. But for me right now, what I really think is I think the Nets take Isaiah Mobley to fit alongside Ben Simmons. He can play him with length, and then you still have a lineup there where you have, Kevin Durant, Isaiah Mobley, Ben Simmons. You've got enough length and size to be a solid defensive team, but you're not really sacrificing too much offense because of Mobley's ability to shoot the basketball. And he's also actually an underrated playmaker as well. That's one thing I don't want to have gone unsaid in this video, is he can actually facilitate the ball fairly well. So he's an interesting blend of offense and defense for Brooklyn. 26, we got the Milwaukee Bucks, a team that I think they're kind of just coasting through the regular season right now. Giannis is playing hard every single night. I just think there's a little bit of an air to them right now where they're, confident in themselves. And I do think that's actually a good thing. And looking at what they could add here, that's guard Max Christie out of Michigan State, a player who I thought maybe could have been a lottery pick this year. His efficiencies just haven't really picked up though. But what he does have is a lot of upside, specifically when the ball is going to be in his hands a little bit more. The nice thing for Milwaukee here now is after you trade Dante DiVincenzo, you do have some open minutes at that backup two guard position. So I think Max Christie could really fill those moving forward. But the other thing I also think here about Max Christie is you give him a couple years to develop. He might play for the Wisconsin Herd for a little bit. Might take some time not playing with the Milwaukee Bucks in practice. Their development staff's probably going to really focus on developing him because they don't have a ton of other young players on this roster. And that focused development for a guy like Max Christie could be huge in unlocking what he can be. He's got decent size as a two guard, and he's someone who I think is really ready to take massive steps forward early in his development. Pick 27, Golden State now on the clock. And with their pick here, there's a few things you could consider. I think this team needs a little bit more athleticism on the wing. I think that they could use another playmaker, and I think that they could also use a little bit more speed. And I'm addressing two of those things here with the speedy playmaker, Jean Montero from Overtime Elite. He's got really good playmaking feel. And it's interesting here, what if Golden State took LaMelo Ball? I think that's going to be a really long-term question that a bunch of people continue asking. Of course, they opted to go with James Wiseman over LaMelo in the 2020 NBA draft, but I think Jean Montero here does help right some of that because you're going to be able to get a ball handling guard here. And I think he's going to offer some organization to this offense because when you look at what Golden State does, yes, it's primarily a motion offense. But when they didn't have Draymond Green with him out for injury right now, their offense is just a little bit off. I think Steph Curry's best with a playmaker next to him. And Jean Montero shows that he loves to pass the basketball. He's got good flair. He's an intriguing player. He's fun to watch as well. So I think there's some entertainment value here for Warriors fans. And I think he's someone who has a real upside here. He's playing in an interesting league right now where, you know, maybe not as many eyes are on him as would be if he went to college or the G League. So I think he might fly under the radar a little bit, but he'd be a really good pickup for Golden State. 28th overall, got the Miami Heat here now at this point. The Heat badly in need of just a few things. I think they need a little bit more creation skills. I think that they could use a backup big to replace Dwayne Dedmon down the road. I also think that this team could use a little bit more physicality. That's just a joke. Obviously, this team is probably the most physical in the league right now. But what I am adding here is a guy who is a little bit of a playmaker, who can play physically, fits that Heat culture. And that's Wendell Moore Jr. from Duke. He's a good 6'5" wing who's physical, ready to play through contact, has really taken strides forward as a passer, averaging nearly 4 assists a game this year. And I think he could be a nice blend option for them off the wing. They've found a ton of guards. They've been really successful in bringing in some guards as of late. When you look at guys like Max Strus, you also look at Gabe Vincent, who's been huge for them. This team has been really good. And I think looking at what they need to add, I think one more forward, even though Caleb Martin's been a good pickup for them as well, Wendell Moore Jr. does make a lot of sense here, 28th overall. Pick 29, the Memphis Grizzlies, their third pick of the first round. They went with Keegan Murray, Kennedy Chandler with their first two. And then here, 29th overall, I could see them going with forward Ochai Agbaji from Kansas. Again, another NBA-ready player here who's going to have really good impact on year one of his NBA career. He's a junior. The last 3 drafts, he's basically, including this one, would have basically tried coming out of college. I've evaluated him now 3 times, and he's definitely much better now than he was the last 2 times. But with Ochai Agbaji here, I do have questions about what his upside is going to be, but his improvement for this season has been massive. He's been a huge part of what Kansas has done this year. One of the players who is going to be one of the best players in college basketball this year. He's going to get a lot of recognition, a lot of honors for his play this year. And I think he could really help Memphis on the wing, specifically with Kyle Anderson. We're not sure what his long-term future is going to be there. I think Zaire Williams is going to step into that starter role down the road as well. But you're looking at Dylan Brooks, not sure exactly how long he's going to be in Memphis. And Kyle Anderson, not sure how long he's going to be there either. So Ochai Agbaji gives you some flexibility to fill in some depth down the road. 30th overall, the final pick here of the first round, we got the Oklahoma City Thunder. This pick comes from the Phoenix Suns, and what I have them going with is forward Johnny Juzang, which is interesting because based on what they've already been able to grab, they've really addressed the front court. Paolo Banchero, they also were able to grab Walker Kessler. Now you get a 3 or 4 man in Johnny Juzang, who maybe is not the most athletic, probably shouldn't be a first round level player, but I think this Thunder team's ready to take a step forward. I think they're ready to start winning more games. And if you want to do that, you add in the guy from UCLA who's been huge for winning in his time as a Bruin. He's a capable creator, and I think that's one more thing that Oklahoma City needs to add. They need to add a bench scorer. And for me, Johnny Juzang could be that in year one of his NBA career. Now, I don't think his ceiling is as high as some of the guys left on the board, but if you're Oklahoma City, you have a ton of draft picks still coming. 30th overall, you don't need to take a swing for the fences. What you need to do is you need to add a guy who you can count on being a solid player for you and really helping raise the floor of this team next to Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, because you have enough talent to do damage now. Don't wait. Get a good player now. Johnny Juzang's a good player now. Take him. You have some potential with Paolo Banchero. You have a lot of potential with Walker Kessler. Johnny Juzang, take a safe player, especially when you have 3 picks in the first round. Not all of them need to be home runs. You can play it safe, hit a single, and hopefully the home run in Paolo Banchero brings him in later. Hopefully you guys did enjoy today's video. If you did, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. Thanks again so much for watching. Really do appreciate it. Let me know your thoughts on this NBA mock draft in the comment section down below, and we'll catch you in the very next Utility Sports video.